Well, we're so happy, and so glad that you decided to come back to Sunday Night Live and join us here tonight. And we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do something special tonight. We're going to be having a third wave segment that we like to do at our gang nights. You guys excited for that? And what this segment is called is, we like to call it, This Is My Story. So what you're going to be hearing tonight is you're going to be hearing testimonies of a broken relationship. You're going to hear testimonies of a single mom, and also a testimony of a distressed childhood. And no matter who you are, maybe you can relate to one of those things here tonight. But what we want you to know is that these are more than just stories. This is more than just something that you're going to hear, but this is something that really took place, and we just hope that you're moved here tonight. So why don't you help me put a hand together for This Is My Story.
Hi, my name is Brandon. I'm 25 years old, and this is my beautiful wife.
Hi, I'm Mia. I'm 23 years old, and I grew up in Victory Outreach. My husband grew up not really knowing God, and this is our story.
So yeah, when I met my wife, it was around high school. I've been knowing her for a while, and then a couple years later, we ended up talking and getting together. And at the time, I was just, involved in different things, of the world, glorifying the wrong things, running with a gang, and, pretty much just, falling for the world and the wrong things as money and things like that. But then I would, when I was with her, I would start taking off and trying to do my own thing. And
When we got together, I had fallen away from the church. I took it really hard when my pastor at the time had passed away. I went looking for love and for comfort in the wrong place, and I met with my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time. We started drinking, hanging out, going to different places. I wasn't going home, I was going to his house. I ended up pregnant, not being married, not in the will of God, we just ended up having a baby and doing things of the world. When I got pregnant, Brandon was still going out and doing his own thing. He wanted to party. Sometimes I would fall asleep at night and I would wake up and he wouldn't be home. He would be out. There was a lot of late nights where we would argue. He would come home, we would argue. While I was pregnant, we would argue. After I had the baby, we moved into my mom's house, and the same thing was happening. He was going out, leaving, going to work, and not coming home. I thought, having a baby was gonna change his ways, but it really didn't.
That's until I attended a convention called Gay Convention 2018. And that's when I felt the presence of God on my life, and just those messages of that night, it just really spoke to me about what it was to be saved, like what Pastor Tim was talking about, and how Pastor Ryan was saying you can't have the winds of the world and the winds of the heaven, and that just really left a print on my life. And the movement of God, just started moving on my life, and I noticed I had a calling. And then, so that's when we started to work things out, and
we decided that we were gonna take God seriously in our relationship. After gang convention, we came back to Whittier, and we started to want God more. God had touched our lives at gang convention. We were still having some hard times, but we were working on it. We decided to get married. Pastor Ryan married us. It was still a hard time. It still was a little bit of a struggle for us, but now, we're learning, and I really feel like we're in a place in our lives right now where God just continues to pour His blessings out on us. We're not perfect, but our marriage has been so blessed. God has moved in a lot of ways, and we're just so grateful to God for everything that He's done in our lives. I never thought that we would be married or that I even wanted to really be with Him, but God moved and we got married, and man, God did something amazing in our lives, and we're just so grateful for our leaders, for this church, for our pastors. God really did something in my husband's life.
Just want to thank God for our salvation and for this ministry, Victory Outreach. I mean, who knows? I mean, back then I never wanted to hear it. When she would try to drag me to church, I would be like, nah, I'm good. Or I would just, try to go ahead and continue on to do my own thing. And then that's when I felt the presence on my life, with God. And I really wanted to lead as an example, for my son, and to lead as an example, as for this, auto generation. And just want to thank God for everything that He's doing and everything that He's continued to keep molding us, and for the men and women of God that we're becoming.
That's our story.
That's our story.
September 30th, 1994, a fatal car crash in the city of Downey kills a baby girl of 4 years old and severely injures 4 more. One of those was my mother. As she lied there on the ground, 8 months pregnant with me, her stomach turned almost completely around, in and out of consciousness. She sees a woman rushing through the crowd. Fighting off police, she places her hand over my mother's womb and begins to pray. The next day I was born. God spared me as He took my cousin home. I was named after you, Violet. But I questioned why. Why spare me? My mother's hopes for a happy family would soon diminish. Piggybacks and family dinners would soon diminish. Hiding behind daddy when mommy gets upset would soon diminish. Walking in his boots and dancing in his arms would soon diminish. Screaming and violence would take over. Divorce has no remorse. At 4 years old, my father leaves. Birthday after birthday, I wish for his return as I blow out my candles, and it never comes. But mother's tears throughout the years helped me to realize that maybe we're better off because she seems free. No more late nights wondering where he could be, or pinned against a wall gasping for air because she questions him. She's light on her feet now. I watch her every weekend as she pats powder on her nose. She adds shimmer to her eyes, sprays on her favorite perfume, takes a drink, and walks out the door again. But it's okay, she's lonely. With dad not around to help, she's forced to work long hours. She leaves before I could say good morning and returns after I could say good night. So weekends are her weekends, to unwind and dance her pain away. I hear her stumble in late nights. I'm lonely. I miss my dad. I call, but he don't answer. Where's my escape? When I was about 8 years old, I walked out my apartment and I saw a crowd of kids running towards a big blue bus parked against the curb with big white letters on its side that spelled out Bethel Church. Every Wednesday at 6 p.m., it would come around the block and pick up all the kids from the neighborhood. It would take us to a place where nothing mattered, where the air was thick and the space between the walls was endless, a sanctuary. My God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, and love. My God is an awesome God. We'd sing, and all of a sudden my loneliness would vanish, and all I wanted was to stay in that presence. But my dad still wasn't home, and my mom still wasn't home, so my heart at nights grew cold. Every time there was progression, regression would subside it, and depression would surround me like compression on my heart. My transgressions of anger, unforgiveness, and aggression brought upon me an oppression that seemed impossible to break. My only prayer after God, I pray my dad picks up his phone, was, God, please just take me home. But every day I'd wake up and see it didn't work. But he'd speak to me. At 10 years old, I'd run upstairs from school and he'd call me at my window. So I'd climb up on the ledge and I'd hear him shouting, jump. He'd tell me that if I jumped, he promises he'll catch me and that we'd both fly off to heaven. My fingers clenched tight to each side of my window pane. My chest puffed out. I'd feel my spine begin to arch as if he himself were pushing me. I believed. I knew that he would catch me. And just when I'd be ready to let go, I'd find myself climbing down the ledge again. At 12 years old, my grandfather moves in. He's kind to me. He defends me. He protects me when mom loses her patience. Every Friday, we take the bus to the alleys in Los Angeles, and he buys me a new pair of shoes. I confide in him. I trust him. He tells me every day how beautiful I am, how quickly I am growing. But when he wakes me up for school, his hands slip where they shouldn't be. Confusion paralyzes me, and at a loss for words, I pretend I don't feel him. I tried to tell someone, but nobody believed me, so I cry out in silence. If I don't have nothing to give, no one can take it from me. No man again will ever hurt me. I brace myself, and darkness overcomes me. I've trained my mind to block out pain. I walk lifeless through the cut with my black pearl tees and chucks. As I nod my head and shrug, homegirl passes me the drugs. Now we're strolling through the block, and of course the cops don't stop. Slam my face against the top while the gangsters pull out Glocks, everyone against the other. I lost all hope in humanity, had to keep my sanity. Skipped school, set myself apart. I'm a one-woman army. Don't need no one but my reefer or my white girl and my pookie. I'ma do me. Me, myself, and I. That's all I got. And in the end, that's what I found out on repeat. Violence on my mind, ears perked up and inclined. 2, 3 drugs combined equals blind, leading the blind. I just can't seem to find rest. At 14 years old, I'm a full-blown addict. Every day I'm grinding, and by grinding I mean thieving. Robbed my mama and my brother and whoever let me too close. I did things I'll never speak of just to get by, just to get high, catch a glimpse of my reflection, and I'd see through the deception. All I wanted was affection. All I needed was protection. But instead, I got rejection. I was lost with no direction, full of flaws and imperfections. I can picture my reception. Curse the day of my conception. Sin consumes me like infection. I can't bring them to subjection. I'm tired. I'm 18 years old now. My mother threw me out. Riding bikes across the city, I'm tired. Put my trust in man, I'm tired. Somebody pull me out of this. I'm tired. Somebody say you love me. I'm tired. Somebody say you care for me. I'm tired. Somebody come spend time with me. I'm tired. Sitting on a bathroom floor, rocking myself back and forth. I'm tired. Smash my pipe against the tile. I'm tired. There's got to be more to life than this. I'm empty. God, if you hear me, please help me. I surrender. I'm walking down Central in the city of Chino as something tugs at me. Every night that building calls me. One Friday I walk into the building and my heart finds rest because I know he called me. I sit alone way in the back and my heart finds rest because I know God called me. Victory outreach within your walls, my heart found rest because I found my calling. I'm sitting in the home now, getting ready on a Sunday morning. I'm excited to hear my pastor preach. As the worship starts and my spirit sparks, I hear, my God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, and love. My God is an awesome God. As tears roll down my cheeks, my soul awakens. My loneliness, it vanishes. I see visions of me at 8 years old with my arms raised high. I am home. And just when I begin to try to make sense of it all, my pastor speaks. Open up your word to Matthew 4:5. Then the devil took him up into the holy city, set him on the pinnacle of the temple, and said to him, if you are the Son of God, throw yourself down. For it is written, he shall give his angels charge over you, and in their hands they shall bear you up, lest you dash your foot against a stone. Every bone within me groaned as I drifted in a zone. In that moment I was shown the deception in his tone exposed. I saw flashbacks of my feet dangling above the stones. 10 years old, the devil came to me and promised if I jump, he'd take me home exposed. I realized the lies that had gripped me all those times. As I feel my anger rise, it comes to my surprise that my mind finds peace. Because I realized all those years ago, through the shouts of the enemy at my window, it was the whisper of the Lord himself that talked me down that ledge again. Satan has tried to take my life from the day that I was born. He fed me lies and I fed into them. He said I wasn't good enough. He said no one could love me. He polluted my innocence. He robbed me of my childhood. He said that I was better off. He kept me silent. He kept me bound. But Satan, you're exposed. My mind finds peace because despite all that you try, I know through Christ I will arise. I may stumble, I may fall, but my eyes are on the prize. Jesus has authorized the price. I will strive. Till the compromise has died, I will thrive. As I memorize the wise, I will tithe. Through the disguise that you devise, I will deprive. The temptations that you throw at me, I will survive. And through the gospel, I'll revive anyone that you desensitize. Despise the youth because we're coming, and we'll shake the gates of hell. God has given us a voice. It's our choice. It's time we silence all the noise. Through him, I'll start a revolution, because God has given the solution. And I know the resolution. Jesus paid the restitution, so I'll join the contribution to bring light to the delusion. No more walking in seclusion. God will heal and clear all your confusion. I have come to the conclusion God was with me all along. I just fed into substitutions. Somebody pull me out of this. Isaiah 45:2. I will go before you and level out the mountains. I will shatter the doors of bronze and cut through the bars of iron. Somebody say you love me. John 15:13. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for his friends. Somebody say you care for me. Psalm 38:8. The Lord will perfect all that which concerns you. Somebody come spend time with me. Revelations 3:20. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens up the door, I will come into him and eat with him and he with me. This is my victory. This is my story.
My name is Michelle, and this is my story. I grew up in the ministry of Victory Outreach as a young girl. I knew I fell in love with God at a very young age. I knew I wanted to serve him for all my days, for the rest of my life. Victory Outreach was all I knew. Fast forward to high school, senior year, I started to fall away. I started to drift apart from God, and I started to party. That is when I met my boyfriend, Junior. It was an instant connection. Fell in love right away. I made him my world. Everything was revolved around him, and I slowly began to forget everything I knew. 1 year later, I was pregnant at the age of 18. I had baby Mariah at 19. I stopped all my plans. I was going to college at the time, and it kind of put a stop on all that. I knew that I wanted my baby girl to know the things of God like I did. So we found ourselves going to Milton, where Pastor Joe was able to dedicate baby Mariah. This is the first time that Junior was able to encounter God. He got a hold of him in a special way, and he gave his life to God. We were coming, but then careers started to happen. I got a good job, I had a good car, and I thought everything was going great. So we stopped coming. Fast forward 7 years to 2012. We decided we wanted to make things right, so we got married. We got married, and then I had Luke in 2013, and then my other baby, Logan, in 2014. But then I slowly started to see changes in my husband, in his character, in the way he was acting. He wasn't the same. His personality was changing, and I had never done any other drugs, so I didn't really understand his behaviors. But as time went on, I started to notice, he was gone frequently, not coming home, wasn't eating the same, wasn't sleeping, and slowly but surely I was starting to lose him. And our marriage started to fall apart. We would fight constantly. He would be accusing me, we would be fighting, we would be at each other's throats all the time. And I didn't understand. But I knew I wanted to change him. I wanted to fix him. I wanted to help him. I wanted to do whatever it is that I needed to do for my husband. I knew the vows we had set before God. I didn't want to break those. So I chose to follow him, to leave after everybody was tired. He had went through job after job, and nobody wanted to help us anymore. So after all doors were shut, we decided to leave, and we went to a hotel room. And there was where we found ourselves, hotel to hotel, collecting cans just to try to figure out what we were going to feed the kids that night. We winded up living out of a van for some time. After that, we found ourselves in a family's garage. And that's where I found myself, just crying, looking at my children, thinking, this is not the life that I chose. This is not the life I wanted for them. I wanted better, and I didn't understand how I had got here. So I cried out to God that night. I remember I wouldn't want to sleep, because every time I fell asleep is when he would leave. I was so scared of him leaving. I didn't want him to leave. But when I fell asleep and I woke up, he was gone. So I just cried out to God, if you could just make a way. I don't know what else to do anymore. I was so desperate for some change, for something new. The next morning, I was able to go to my parents' house without him. And the first place I wanted to go was running to God. I ran to church, and I just wanted to get in his presence. I was broken. I was crying. I was surrendering. I said, God, please, I need you, God, more than ever. My husband was lost. He was bound by the drug addiction. But I came to the only place that I knew where to go, and that's in God's presence. I cried out to him. I said, God, make a way when there seems to be no way. Heal him. I said, I surrender my husband, my family, my children, my well-being, my everything to you. If you could just turn this situation around, I'll do anything. I plugged into ministry. I got into the worship team, and I worshiped my way. Those 3 months, I had no communication with him. He was out on the streets. He was homeless. He was living on the trails. People would tell me all the time they would see him. And my heart would break, but I knew God had a better plan. I knew, and I trusted God. I knew that there was a way, because God always made a way. Shortly after 3 months, I was still doing ministry. I was here at Whittier. We were doing a drama. We were in a live drama. And everybody said, your husband's here. I I couldn't believe it. I said, what is he here? Well, I got scared. I said, why is he here? Something wrong? He came into the men's home. I was like, thank you, Jesus. That was the best day, one of the best days of my life. He gave himself to God. And that is the only place, after 2.5 years of struggling in his addiction, where he was able to get clean, healed, sober, restored. He had came back. I couldn't believe it. I was just so amazed. I was so happy, you know. Even though he didn't stick it out the full time, he came back, and we were able to spend some time together as a family. Within those 3 months, I got to see the change in him, and I was so grateful to God. And every day, you know, he would just proclaim victory and thanking God for his salvation. After that, he slowly, unfortunately, he relapsed 1 month, 33 days. On December 3rd, 2016, I got a call that he was found murdered behind the 99-cent store in his neighborhood. My life was never the same after that day. I couldn't believe it. I was in shock. I was in disbelief. I was numb. I didn't want to believe that, you know, the love of my life, the husband, my children's father was gone. But he gave me those 3 months. He gave me those 3 months with him to spend, to know that he knew God and where he was going. And I didn't understand at the time. I went through a dark place. I lost 25 pounds. I didn't want to live, but God continued to see me through. I would look at my kids and I would say, I don't want them to be without a mother and a father. So I need to get up and I need to put one foot in front of the other, and I need to go back to what I know and go proclaim to God everything that I knew. I needed to go and just get a hold of God like never before. And I just thank God. I just thank God for what he's done in my life. And even though I know as a single mom I've had a struggle, but at the end of the day, I know that God has held me. He's held my arms, he's held my feet, he's guided me, he's picked me up, and he's carried me through the darkest times of my life. So I want to tell you that there is hope for the drug addict. There's hope for the broken marriage. There's hope. There's restoration, because God restored my mind when mentally I couldn't see anymore. Mentally, I didn't know what was going on with me anymore. I thought I was losing it, but God restored everything and more back into my life. Now my kids, they're here, they're serving, they know God every day. They wake up, they want to sing worship. Why? Because that is where we're supposed to be. We go in our weakest and our darkest times to God, and we give everything to him. And I thank God for what he's done in my life and how I've just covered myself, life groups, prayer groups, service. Thank God for my leaders and everybody that's poured in and invested in me. I thank God for that. I thank God for the ministry of Victory Outreach, for everything that it's done within the men's home and everything that had happened between my husband and how it changed his life and my life. And I would never change that for the world. This is my story.
My name is Antoinette, and I'm 16 years old. And I think this song is the best way to tell you my story. When I was lost and when I was going through the battles with my family, with my parents on the verge of divorce, God was there in the midst of it all. So I pray that this song ministers to you, and I pray that you're blessed. When it feels like the dark, lingers longer than the night. When the shadows feel like giants, are you chasing me down? Tell me, where could I run from your light? Where could I hide? And within your precious thoughts, there's no hiding from your love. Highs and lows, Lord, you're with me the way it goes. Should I rise or should I fall? Even so, Lord, your mercy is an even flow. You're too good to let me go. Should I dance on the heights or make my bed among the depths? Your mercy waits at every end, like you planted from the start. Should the dawn come with wings far side of the sea, and there your hand still fastens me ever closer to your heart. Oh, highs and lows, Lord, you're with me the way it goes. Should I rise or should I fall? Even so, Lord, your mercy is an even flow. Should I rise or should I fall? You are faithful through it all. You're too good to let me go. Yes, you're too good to let me go. Yes, Jesus, you are with me through the highs and the lows. Highs and lows, Lord, you're with me the way it goes. Should I rise or should I fall? You are faithful through it all. Even so, Lord, your mercy is an even flow. Should I rise or should I fall? You are faithful through it all. Highs and lows, you surround me the way it goes. Should I rise or should I fall? You are faithful through it all. Oh, highs and lows, in the rhythms of your grace I know Should I rise or should I fall? You were faithful through it all. You're too good to let me go.
My name is Isaiah Carrillo, and this is my story. December of 2018 was my first suicide attempt. Church kid, pastor's son, protege, you know, my grandfather was Pastor Ed Morales, and I became a drug addict. I came to Los Angeles in 2014 because I had a dream to pursue, you know, the call of God and to pursue a career in film. And I wanted to use what God had given me for the ministry. And so I went into the UTC, I enrolled there, and there I fell in love with the training center and the vision all over again. And it was in that time that I got pulled to work in our corporate office. And I was holding on to this dream that I was going to be a filmmaker, that I was going to be a movie maker for God. You know, I felt that was my pulpit, that was my message from our generation, was to make films that were going to impact young people like myself. And so while working there, you know, just being humble, just being grateful that I was there in the international office, an opportunity came along to write a script about our founder. And I was so excited. I got to write the Sunny movie, and it was like dreams were coming true, and everything that I ever wanted started happening. But there was a lot of pain, and there was a lot of things that I never dealt with. You know, when I was 17, my pastor died from cancer, and I just thought, you know, I got to be a soldier, and I don't have time to cry, and there was young people depending on me, so I thought, you know, I just got to keep pushing through, you know? You know, it is in ministry sometimes. They tell you, just, come on, brother, just be strong, be a soldier, you know? And I felt the pressure of being a pastor's son. I felt the pressure of carrying on this man's legacy that I shouldn't have felt, but I felt it. And I carried it. So when I came out here to Southern California, I always felt like, man, I'm representing more than myself. I'm representing this man's legacy. And so I felt like I never had the chance to be a regular, you know, young person. You know, I was saved in high school, so I never partied, I never dated, I never did anything wild. I was a square, you know? And so fast forward to 22, you know, in the prime of ministry, things were going great, but then I started to feel like I was in a valley. I started to feel like, man, God, like, I feel alone. I used to get real envious of young guys and their pastors. Like, I would see guys and, you know, they would have a really close relationship with their pastor, and I would be like, man, you're so lucky because I don't have that. You know, and I grew up with my father, and so I don't know what it's like to not have a dad in your life, but I know what it is to grow up without a spiritual father, because from 17 to 24, I didn't have that anymore. And so I just felt like fatherless in the ministry. And a certain situation happened in my life. I kind of got distracted with someone, and that detoured me big time, and things didn't work out. And so after everything that happened, I just burned myself. I stopped working for the ministry. I stopped going to church, and I became a drug addict. I watched my parents, you know, open our doors to people that were on heroin and on meth, and I learned how at 7 years old how to help someone kick from heroin because of growing up in the home. But I myself became a drug addict, and I felt so ashamed. I felt like, man, I was worthless. I was nothing. And in December, I took so many pills. I don't even know what I took. I took a bunch of Xanax. I swallowed like 6 bottles of codeine, and I remember just laying in my bed and just thinking, like, man, this is it. Man, the call of God, that was just a lie. Like, what a stupid dream. I think I'm gonna preach and make movies for God. Like, what a dumb dream. And I felt very alone, and I just remember like closing my eyes thinking like, man, I'm sorry, Mom and Dad, I'm sorry, but I'm not gonna wake up, and you're gonna have to bury your son, and I'm sorry. And I don't know what happened. I passed out, and for those of you guys who know about drugs, like I slammed a lot that day. I took a lot. And I even had some heroin on the side, some black tar. I was ready to shoot up. I just wanted to make sure, like, this is it. I'm gonna die, And because my thing was, I don't want to shoot myself in the head. I want to give my mom an open casket. Like, that's how dark my mind got. And so, anyways, all of a sudden, like, I don't know how long I was passed out, but I woke up. And I felt like my heart was pumping out of my chest. And I remember I felt like I was on fire, and I was hallucinating. And it looked like the room was on fire, like the curtains. Till this day, I'm telling you, like, it really looked like the curtains were on fire. And I kept telling myself, dude, you got to get to the pool. Like, I had a pool in my backyard. Now, mind you, this is December, so it was very cold. So I was like, all right. So I remember I just ran to the back, and I thought, man, I'm going to die for sure. This is it. So I jumped in the pool, and I just remember kind of blacking out. And all I really remember is I woke up the next day, and I woke up in dry clothes, clean clothes. I had a really bad bloody nose, and there were still drugs on the side, so I know that definitely happened. But God rescued me, and he saved me. And I had started going to school in Hollywood, and I was getting caught up with the people there in that scene. And if you guys know about Hollywood, it's very wild, it's very crazy. And I just thought, you know what? I'm done with God. And what you called me to do to reach this generation, to be a voice in this generation, I'm still going to do that, but I'm not going to do it for you. I'm going to do it for the world. And I started selling concepts for music videos, and I started getting caught up with a lot of crazy people that were connected with well-known rappers like Post Malone and all those guys. And that was like where I was heading. But I remember, I thank God for our pastors here. I thank God for Pastor Joe and Sister Doreen, because they reached out to me. And they called me one day, and I just started thinking about the call of God all over again. And I don't know if here tonight, maybe you've gone through whatever it is you've gone through, but maybe the call of God seems very far. For me, I thought the call of God was over. I thought it was done. I thought, you know what, there's no way God could ever use someone like me. I disrespected his pulpit. I turned my back on him. I became everything that the vision, is trying to reach. I became the opposite. But if God could do it for me, because I am standing here today, I'm sober, I am in my right mind. You guys can stand here tonight. I am in my right mind. I lost my mind. I was doing so much drugs, and my parents didn't even know, and it was so bad. It was so bad. And if the enemy could do that to me, someone who grew up in the house of God, somebody who grew up knowing God's goodness and even being a leader at one time, he could do it to anyone. Where no one here is exempt. No one here is exempt. And I just want to encourage us tonight that every single one of us, we might have different testimonies. You heard here tonight, everybody had a different story and a different background. But what unifies us all is that in the Bible it says that there is power in the word of your testimony. At Victory Outreach, this ministry has been built on the word of one man's testimony and many others. And here tonight, I believe that God is going to give us power to begin to speak our testimony in the streets, in our schools, in our workplaces. And this is just the very beginning of what God wants to do. So I just want you to lift your hands here tonight as the musicians begin to play and just begin to